Hi there, Nate Urandi, Orion Training Systems. A little bit of a macabre topic today, personal tragedy. For those of you in the know, in the cycling community, Steve Tilford was tragically killed today. I never knew Steve, but I highly respected him. One of the pioneers in USA cycling, phenomenal person, advocate for clean sport, you name it. But, for those of you who don't know, an overturned semi caused a chain reaction of events that led to a multi-car pileup and Steve's death. But it got me thinking about tragedy in general. You've got things that happen that are certainly tragic, but they're expected. For example, someone who might have advanced stages of cancer and are beyond hope of it going into remission. Certainly their death is sad and tragic, but it's expected. You see it coming. Other times, such as an accident or something else, it can be very sudden, and therefore it hits you a little bit harder. I think back to an experience I had now a dozen years ago when I was first on this Sonic Boom Racing cycling team. Myself and three other gentlemen founded the team, and I was out for a ride, ironically on Memorial Day, with a teammate, friend, and someone I also coached, one of the other founders of the team. And we were going along Highway 36 north from Boulder to Lyons, a super popular thoroughfare for cyclists with gigantic shoulders, very safe, even though there's traffic coming along at 55 to 65 miles an hour. It's a two-lane state highway. Coming in the other direction, so from the Lyons area, was a teen driving a Ford Explorer SUV full of other teens. They'd been up all night at a party, and as Scott and I were going down the road, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, I was closest to the road, he was closest to the grass, just caught out of the corner of my eye a shimmying of a vehicle, and I look and saw this Explorer, this huge SUV, coming straight at us. When they say time slows down, it absolutely slows down. The span of a second and a half to 2 seconds felt like an eternity. I vividly remember seeing the vehicle, looking to Scott, seeing his look of confusion and incredulity, looking back, and then just somehow knowing that I had to swerve into the traffic lane to avoid getting hit. It was almost as if it was done for me. It wasn't a thought process. It was just a reaction. And as I swerved, I look back at Scott and I see the impact and I hear it and I feel it. And all I can think of is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Literally, I'm just saying that over and over again. I screech to a stop. I throw my bike down. I turn around and I still see his bike cartwheeling through the air. Don't even know where he's at, but somehow I know where he's at. I find him and I know he's dead. But I check him and I see that he is in fact dead. And, long story short, he had been thrown nearly 200 feet from the point of impact, as had his bike. I was there for about 2.5 hours with him as the state troopers showed up, the paramedics showed up, the coroner showed up, and that time went by in an instant. But my wife came to get me, and I remember leaving a message for her, but I don't remember exactly what I said. But when we were in the car getting ready to leave, state trooper stopped us, and apologetically so. We rolled down her window and she said, "Do you want your bike?" I had left my bike in the road. I had no desire whatsoever to even get it. And I didn't even think about it. And Lori, my wife, to her credit, she just got out, grabbed it, threw it in the back of the Outback, and home we went. I didn't care whether or not I ever saw a bike again, let alone rode one. But 3 weeks later, there was a Ride for Silence to honor Scott as well as other fallen riders in the area. And there were north of 600 people who showed up to this 10-mile ride. And we did the loop in silence to honor the fallen cyclists. Afterwards, I was and that was the first ride I had done in 3 weeks. And that was the only reason I did it is because my wife, bless her heart, said we should do this. And I said, we should. But afterwards, as I was putting my bike back on the bike rack, my best friend, Andy Johnson, said, "Hey, why don't you ride back home with us from here?" It was about a half-hour ride. I didn't want to, but I looked at Lori. She looked at me. She told me I should. And that ride was so freeing. Crazy. It was so freeing. I just remember being in this group of about 8 or 10 guys, and partway back, Andy, I'm in the pace line, and we're going at a comfortable pace, and Andy looks at me as he comes by, and he gives me the look he always does when he's like, "I'm going to attack, and you better be ready for it." And he attacked. And instead of thinking about it, I just reacted. And I jumped on his wheel. And when I did that, it was like a horse out of a barn when the gate opens up. It was like all this stuff just flew behind me, and I was free. And I rode that for all it was worth. And that's what got me back on the bike. It was support from those closest to me. I was emotionally and mentally drained from that experience, and it took a good year to get over it. But here it was 3 weeks later, me thinking I'd never ride a bike again, and instead it was the most free feeling I had ever had. So, if you've experienced tragedy, it's an emotional and mental roller coaster that just saps you, takes it all out of you. You have to let the physical side ebb away for a while until you reach that stasis, that balance. You've got an emotional, mental, and physical bucket of stress. And if one or more of those is overflowing, you have to learn how to pull back on the others. In this case, regarding tragedy, you got to pull back on the physical when it hits you. You gotta put your goals aside for a little while and deal with that blackness, that terrible feeling, and process it. You have to honor that. You can't ignore it. But eventually you will, and eventually you'll get over it, and eventually you'll move on, and life will come, and then you'll be hit by ripples, just like I was during this unfiltered video. I was hit by a ripple in the lake from that experience now a dozen years ago. Man, I didn't expect that. But in any case, hopefully this was insightful and helpful. And as always, leave your comments below. Happy to hear them and respond to them. And as always, happy training.